In this video, we're going to be looking at ordering numbers. Now, before we dive into the examples, I just want you to appreciate how amazing our numeral system is. And to do that, I'm just going to give you a quick question involving Roman numerals. So here are two numbers involving Roman numerals. The first one looks like this, and the second one looks like this. And my question for you is, which of these is the greater number? So which one is higher? Hopefully, if you know your Roman numerals, you will see that this is actually 1000, so that's the M, whereas XXXVII is actually just 37. Now, the point I'm trying to make here is that with something like Roman numerals, it's not obvious straight away which is the larger number, and you certainly can't tell by counting digits, as it were. So XXXVII looks much longer than just M, but actually M happens to be the much greater number in this case. All right, let's move on to our examples. For the first 5 questions then, what we need to do is order these sets of numbers from lowest to highest, or from least to greatest. Now, in every single case, we are dealing with whole numbers here, so integers only. Integers is just another fancy word for whole numbers. Notice that includes positive numbers, but also negative numbers and 0. Now, when we're dealing with integers, and particularly like in question 1 when we've only got positive integers, what we can instantly see is that the more digits you've got, the greater the number. That's one of the amazing things about our number system. So what we've got here is a 1-digit number, 2 2-digit numbers, a 3-digit number, and a 4-digit number. So straight away, I know that the least or the lowest is going to be 4. It's the only 1-digit number. I also know that the highest is going to be 5,800. It's the only 4-digit number, and that's the maximum number of digits in any of these numbers. Now, what comes after the 4? Well, that was a 1-digit number, and there are no more 1-digit numbers in this set, so I need to look at the 2-digit numbers. I've got 20 and 81. To decide between those two, what I need to do is look at the greatest place value column, so the tens column. And I'm just going to choose the one with the lower value, the lower digit in that tens place value column. And in this case, that is the 2. 2 is less than 8, so that means 20 is less than 81. So the next number is 20, and that's followed by 81. Notice I don't even need to worry about what comes in the units column, because if I've got 2 tens, it doesn't matter how many units I've got in there, it's going to be less than 8 tens, regardless of how many units I've got here. So we've dealt with the 1-digit number and the 2-digit numbers, and what I've got next is a 3-digit number and a 4-digit number. So the 3-digit number is what comes next. That's 293. And finally, I've got 5,800. So that was an easy example to get us started. Let's move on to question 2. In this example, again, I'm dealing with only positive integers, so positive whole numbers. I've got a 2-digit number, I've got 2 3-digit numbers, and then a 4-digit number. So I know the 4-digit number is going to be the greatest. I know that the 2-digit number is going to be the least, but I have to decide between the 3-digit numbers carefully. So anyway, let's start with the 2-digit number. That's the lowest. So I've got 53. I've got no more 2-digit numbers left, so I need to look at the 3-digit numbers, 512 and 521. Now, just like before, I'm going to start by looking at the greatest place value column. So I've got 500s in this number, and I've also got 500s in the other number. 512 and 521 both have the same number of hundreds. So just by looking at the hundreds column, I cannot tell which of these is greater and which of them is lower. So what I need to do is go to the next place value column along. I'll highlight that in a different colour. 512 has got 1 10, 521 has got 2 10s. So now I can tell that 512 is lower than 521 because they've both got the same number of hundreds, but 512 has got fewer 10s. It's just got 1 10 as opposed to 2 10s. So I can put them in my list. 512 comes next, and then 521. And finally, that leaves us with 2,510. Let's move on to question 3. Now, in this case, we've got a 0 and all of the rest are negative integers. Let's just have a quick think about the number line. Let's say I've got my number line here. Now, what we have on the number line is 0, and then you can count up your number line. So we'd have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on, all the way up. Now, counting down in steps of 1 from 0, we would get -1, -2, -3, -4, -5, and so on, which I'll write like this. And hopefully you can see straight away that 0 is greater than all of these negative numbers. So that means when we write these out in order from lowest to highest, 0 is going to be our highest number. Now, how do we decide what is lowest? Hopefully you can also see that something like -8 is going to be below -3. So counting down, we've got -3, -4, -5. We'd have -6, -7, and -8. So I'm not going to mark everything out, but there's -8. It's lower than -3. And then hopefully you can see that -17 would be even lower still, because as you count down, you would get to -17 further down. And then eventually, if you keep going further down, you would get to -24. So that means -24 is actually the lowest of these numbers. And -17 would come next. Then you would have -8. Then you would have -3. And finally, you would have 0. I'm just going to get rid of all of this. And there we have 0. So we're done with question 3. Pause the video and have a go at questions 4 and 5. Here's what you should have got. In question 4, the one furthest down the number line is -9. So that's first in our list. That's the lowest. Then we've got -6. Then we've got -5. Then we've got 3. And finally we have 6. In question 5, we have got 3 negative numbers and 2 positive numbers. So going from lowest to highest, we need to have the 3 negative numbers first in the correct order, and then we'll have the 2 positive numbers. Let's focus on these negative numbers. -235 is 235 steps below 0. -24 is 24 steps below 0. And -240 is 240 steps below 0. So let's think about which one is furthest below 0. Well, this one is only a 2-digit number, so it can't be -24. So that means the lowest is either -235 or -240. So to compare those, because they've both got 3 digits, we'll start by considering the hundreds column. Now they both have 2 in the hundreds column, so that doesn't really help us. So we'll look at the next place value column. Now this is going 230 something steps below 0, and this is going 240 something steps below 0. Now 4 is greater than 3, So that means this is going further. But because it's a negative number, that means it's going further below 0. That makes this the lowest number. So our list is going to start with negative 240. Then we have the negative 235. And then we have negative 24. Now we're into our positive numbers. And in this case, they both have the same number of hundreds. That's the greatest place value column we're dealing with. So that doesn't really help us tell them apart. They both happen to have the same number of tens. They've both got 3 tens. So we still can't tell them apart just by looking at the hundreds and the tens column. So we have to move to the next place value column along, which is the units column. And we can see that this one has only 1 in the units column, whereas this one has 5 in the units column. So that means 231 is lower than 235. So that's the order we put them in. And here we have our ordered list. Finally, in question 6, we need to fill in these blanks using either this symbol or this symbol. Now we need to know what they mean. This symbol is the greater than symbol. So whenever you see that, you can simply read it as is greater than. And when you see this symbol pointing the other way, you can read it out loud as is less than. So let's look at this one here. 345, is that greater than or less than 347? Hopefully, based on what we've done, you can see that 345 is less than 347. So we can't tell just by comparing their biggest place value column, the hundreds in this case. That means we have to then look at the next one along, the tens, but they both have the same number of tens. So then we have to move to the next one along, and we can see that 5 units is less than 7 units. So 345 is less than 347. Now, that means we use this symbol here. So 345 is less than 347. Pause the video and have a go at these last 2 questions. Here's what you should have got. 3 is greater than negative 4. 3 is a positive number, so it's higher than 0 on the number line. Negative 4 is a negative number, so it's lower than 0 on the number line. So 3 is higher or greater than negative 4. And finally, negative 8 is actually less than negative 7. If you think about it, negative 8 is 8 steps below 0, whereas negative 7 is only 7 steps below 0, which means negative 8 is lower down the number line, which means it is less than negative 7.